Web extraction with Microsoft Power Automate Desktop is straightforward. To get the maximum out of this video, please open up your own Power Automate Desktop and do all the steps with me. In case things goes too fast, just pause or rewind the video. It's designed for that. My name is Jensen. I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional. Let's learn some Power Automate Desktop. Right-click on your desktop, say New, Folder, and we will call this Project. This is our project folder. Here we will put in the course materials that the robot will read. It will also be the folder where the robot will output to. Let's go download the input material. So I open up a browser. Navigate to this course page. The link is in the description below. Under course materials, you'll see the input to Amazon.xlsx. Right-click, say Save Link As, and we will put it in our project folder. So navigate to the project folder and save it there. Let's go inspect the data. So in the project folder, we will have the input to Amazon.xlsx. Double-click to open it. Here we will have an Excel book with 2 sheets. We will have products to scrape, and this is the sheet that we want the robot to read. Here we have 4 products. For each one of these products, we want to do a book search on Amazon and scrape the corresponding results back. For example, we will do a regex search. It will look like this. So our robot will navigate to Amazon. Then it will click this drop down. It will go into books, and then it will search for regex. It will click enter, and all these results we want to be stored in an Excel sheet. That is, we want the title to be saved. We want the corresponding URL for each one of the books. We want the authors for all the books, and we want the ratings and amount of ratings here. Let's go create that in Power Automate Desktop. So in Power Automate Desktop, you click New Flow. We will call this Web Scraping and click Enter. We will use regions to better structure our robot. So here I'll find a region and drag it in. A region will be ignored at runtime, but it lets us developers get a better view of the robot, especially if we got a lot of actions. This one we will call Initialization and click Save. Let's grab the path to the project folder. So go to our desktop. We will minimize all this. We will grab the path to the project folder. So here you'll say Shift with your keyboard, right-click with your mouse, copy as path. Back to Power Automate Desktop and our flow. Go up to Actions, search for a set variable and drag it in. The variable name, that will be project path, and in the value you will press Ctrl V on your keyboard. Remember to move the quotation marks because we will not need them when Power Automate Desktop wants to read a path. Then we click Save. The benefit of storing the project path as a variable is that if we choose to suddenly change the location of the project folder, then we can just do it here in the variable and not like 3 places down the code that we're going to write now. So always use variables for the things that can change, and also use variables for things that you repeat a lot in your flows. That is best practice. We'll drag in another set variable. This one will be for our Amazon URL. And in here, you'll just say https://Amazon.com. Then we'll click Save. Let's open up a browser so we can do the robot work. Find a Launch New. In here, you can either use Firefox, Chrome, or Edge. I prefer Edge, so I'll drag that one in. But you are free to go with Chrome or Firefox with this guide. It will not make a difference. We will launch a new browser, and in the initial URL, we will go to the Amazon URL. So click the X, double click the Amazon URL, we will create a browser instance called browser. Then we'll click save. We can run our robot by clicking run up here. That will open up Amazon. So far, so good. Let's go back to Power Automate Desktop. We will do the web scraping now. So up in Actions, find another region and drag it in here. This one we will call web scraping. The first thing we want to do, because right now we're just here, that is to choose books from this drop-down. So up in Actions, you'll find a set drop-down list value on web page. Make sure you pick the one under web form filling and not the one up here. So I'll drag this one in. You'll see that we operate in the browser instance. That was the variable that got created up here in the Launch New Microsoft Edge. We will choose a UI element. So click the drop-down, Add UI Element. And let me move this UI element picker. Over here, you will pick this drop-down. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger than expected. This red border covers a little bit more of the search field, but it's the select that you'll need to find. Press Ctrl on your keyboard while this is red. Click with your mouse. The UI element is created. We will not clear it, but we will click this drop-down and instead choose to select options by names. In the options names, we will have books. That's the drop-down value that we want to select. We will click save. Try to run the robot again by clicking run up here. We are opening it. And we are now in the books section. Then we can do our search by typing in the search term here. First, we will not do all four. We will just do one of these and see that this works. Then we will expand our solution to work for each one of these topics. That is, the robot will read this Excel sheet. So let's go back here. To do a search, we will find a populate text field on web page and drag that one in. Again, we will operate in the browser instance. The UI element, we will click this drop down, and here you can see the previously created UI element that was the drop down. We will add a new UI element by clicking down here. Find the input text field up here. Again, press Ctrl on your keyboard and click with your mouse. That will create this UI element. In the text, that will be the text that our robot types. I'll just type in manually regex. We'll click save. Run and inspect again. And yes, we will run our robot a lot. That is to verify that each step works. Imagine that we built 20 steps and then we realized something was wrong in the beginning. That could give us a lot of extra work. Right now it succeeds. Now we just need to click enter here. So I'll go back. Find a send keys and drag this one in. Under insert special keys, find MISC, choose enter. Here you can see we could also write this code, but it's often more easy just to find it automatically. Then we'll click save. And in here, there's a little bit of a trap. I just wanted to show you. So click run and don't worry if we are not going to succeed here. Hint, hint, we are not. As you can see, we say regex, but we don't send the enter click here. What is wrong? This is a common scene. What is wrong here is that our populate text field unfocus the text field. And then when we send enter, we are not focusing on the web page. The solution is to double click the populate text field on web page, go to advanced. In this unfocused text box after filling it, just deactivate that, click save. Run the robot again and see that this works now that we can do the search. Books, regex, we send the enter click, there you go. The actual web scraping is the easiest part. So go up here, find and extract data from web page, again on the web data extraction, drag it in here. Now we need to open up the search results, and yes, we have opened up a lot of browsers. That is, our robot doesn't close down the browsers yet. That's fine. We will of course create that in the robot a little later. Just open up this search result, then this live web helper will open. That will help us extract the data. Let me just resize so I can have both the live web helper and the results. Again, you can see this red border moves around. What I want to do here is that I want to choose the first header. And here you can see I can choose span, but I can also go a little wider and choose heading 2. There will be no practical difference in this use case. We will just go with span here. So I right click. This time you don't press your keyboard, but right click with your mouse, extract element value. And here you can see text, and there it is, the first part of the title. Click it. Then you will see green dots around the title, and it will also appear over here. Then we will take the second title. And here, as I said, it doesn't make a difference if you choose span or heading 2. But if you choose span up here, you will need to choose span in the second title as well. Right click, extract element value, and pick the text once more. Boom. Power Automate Desktop automatically says, well, this is a pattern. We chose the first title, the second one. Then we want to take each one of these titles. Quite clever, right? Then we want the corresponding author. And here we can see that we can actually grab this anchor. But if we have more authors, we need to grab the whole line, that is the div. That means that we will get unwanted data width. We will have the by, and we will also have the date in the end. That's fine. We can easily do data gymnastics later on. So just choose this entire div, right click, extract element value, and choose the whole line. And we only needed to do it once here. That is, we already defined the pattern. So Power Automate Desktop says, well, if this is the pattern, then I want to take this entire line to each one of these results. We also want the rating, and this is this 4.3. It's not sure that you have the same book, but just pick the first rating. So we right click, extract element value, and pick the rating. Now we got that. We also want the amount of ratings. That is this 5 here. Here we have 6 ratings and 70 ratings and so forth. So I right click here, extract element value, and pick the amount of rating. Again, we get a little bit of unwanted data since we have a parentheses. We will fix it later on. Now we have the data that we want for now. So click finish. Here we can see, if we scroll a little bit down, that we save it into a variable. And the variables produced is called data from web page. You also have the option to, if you click this drop down, to choose Excel spreadsheet if you want to save it directly into Excel. But since we want to work with the data, it's preferable to store it in a variable that will be a data table. This will be much faster. So in the variables produced, it says data from web page. Let's rename this. This is another best practice. Always rename your variables so it tells a story about the data that it stores. That will make it easier for you and your colleagues to come back to and maintain this robot later in the future. Save. Now you can click Run once more. Here we will open it. We will set the dropdown, say regex, do the search, and in a little while we are extracting the data. Go back to Power Automate Desktop. Over here to the right in variables, in case you don't see it, it might look like this. You can just click this little X up here in the corner. Amazon results, 16 rows and 4 columns. Double click on that here. There you go. If I move my mouse a little bit to the right, we have all our data here. Some of the books don't have reviews. That's fine. And here we have it. We will have the data for the first site. And if you see here, you can see that this is a data table. That means that the first row, that is index 0, a data table is 0 indexed. So usually you will think that this will be index 1, but it is index 0. That will matter later on when we work with data tables. go close this. We also want to close the browser because see here, we have opened up quite a lot of Amazons right now. So go up to Actions, then you'll find a region and drag it in here. We will call this End. In this region, the robot will close down the systems that it worked in. Here, it will close down our browser. Go up to Actions once more. Find a Close Web Browser here and drag it into the newly created region. This will just close down the browser variable, that is the instance that got created up here in the Launch New Microsoft Edge. Click Save. Now go run it. So the only thing that we'll see here is that we know that all these steps works, but we'll see that the robot closed down this browser. It did. Congrats, you have already built a lot. Let's write the results back to Excel. And yes, we could have done it directly into the extract data from web page. Remember, if I double click here, I can choose Excel spreadsheet, but we didn't want to. That is because we want to do some data table operations a little bit later that we want to go advanced on. So we will do it in a variable here, and then we will just have the write to Excel in the next region. First, we will launch an Excel instance. Go up to Actions, and then you'll find a Launch Excel and drag it in here. Since we're going to write out results to it, it will be a blank document. We will not have it visible. We don't want to see what's going on here. The variable is produced that is called Excel instance. Since we're opening up another Excel instance later, that will be when we want to read our different topics, then we will call this one Excel instance results like this, and we'll click Save. So we open up the Excel sheet up here in Initialization. Then after the web scraping, we want to write the data into this Excel instance. So go up here. Then you'll find another region. Drag in the region in between the web scraping region and the end region. This one we will call Write to Excel and click Enter. We will add a new worksheet. So up in Actions again, Add New Worksheet, drag it in here. We will add it into our Excel instance, that is the only one created so far. The new worksheet, that will be regex, that will correspond to our search. We can add it as either the first worksheet or the last one. I prefer last, but feel free to go with first if you prefer that. Then we'll click Save. To write to Excel, you will find a Write to Excel worksheet. Drag it in beneath the Add New Worksheet. The value to write, that will be the Amazon results that we got over here. So pick this little X here, say Amazon results. It's important that you don't write these things out, but whenever you can, use these variable pickers. That will reduce errors in your robot building. Where do we want to write to? Since we can't not write headers out directly from a data table, we could do that if we looped it. We will just write the data out into Excel, and here we will start in column A and pick row 2, because in the first row we'll have our headers. Then you'll click Save. Now scroll a little bit down to the region End. Here we will delete the default Excel worksheet called Sheet 1. You know, whenever you create an Excel book, you will have this Sheet 1 in. We don't want that, so we will delete it. So delete Excel worksheet, drag it in here in the region End. We will delete the sheet named Sheet 1 like this. If you use a local version of Excel, that could be in Danish, for example, in my language, then this will be Arc1. Just try to run the robot if this doesn't work and pick your local name instead. But mine is Sheet 1, so I'll go with that. I'll click Save. We also want to close and save Excel. This just write to the Excel instance. A close Excel will save the data. So find a close Excel and drag it in here. Here we will choose to save document as. Where do I want to save it? I want to save it into this project path that we created in the beginning. I can choose this little X here, double click the project path, and then I want to say, what name do I want to give this sheet? So I will have a backward slash, then I'll say result.xlsx. Now we click save. Let's go run it. So I'll say run. And again, this will get repeated. We know this works. We haven't seen the Excel things, so it will be exciting to see that we can actually write the data out. It looks like our robot succeeded. It did. So if I go back here, in your project folder, you will now have a result.xlsx. Double click to open it. There you go. We now have our data beautifully written out. And yes, we have a little bit of a problem here because we will have the title, that is fine. But the author, we will have it by, and then you will have this date. And we can also see that we have a minus here, minus. That was the amount of reviews. So we need to at least remove this minus. No problem. And we can see that we still need headers. So let's go add these. I'll close down this Excel and I'll go back to Power Automate Desktop. We will write into the Write to Excel again. So go up here, find another Write to Excel worksheet. Drag it in beneath the first one. So in the value to write, we need to add a row that will be of the type data row. It will look like this. So 2 percentage sign, move inside them, then make a curly bracket start and a curly bracket end like this. Move inside the curly brackets. Then we'll have a hard bracket start and a hard bracket end. So, and let me make some spaces. These will just be ignored with at runtime, but it will make it easier for you to actually see what's going on. So 2 percentage signs in the start and in the end, then a curly bracket, then a hard bracket, and then we can have the data row in here. So a single quotation mark, since this is a string, text value, comma separated. This is the first one. So in single quotation marks, say title and then a comma. Another single quotation mark, we will have the author, like this. Then we will have another single quotation mark and a comma. We will have the rating, like this. Have another comma. We will have the amount of reviews, like this. Add another single quotation marks. And since we are going to extract the URL a little bit later, let's just create that as well when we are here. So this will be an empty column for now. Fine. We will fill it with data later on. Where do we want to write it? Well, it will also be in the column A. Now it will just be row 1. Then we'll click save. Try to run the robot again. And what we're going to see here is that we can add headers in the Excel. So we build components over and over to this flow. And once we have added another component, we will go run the robot and inspect that this will work. Double click the result. And up here you can see that we now have nice column headers. So far so good. Close it again. Each time the robot runs, we will overwrite this result. Let's do dynamic file naming so we will not overwrite the data. Back to Power Automate Desktop. Scroll up. Up here in Initialization, we will get the current date and time. So I'll say get current date time. Drag it in after the 2 first set variables. The reason that we want this current date and time is that we can use it for dynamic file naming. That is, we will always have different date and times when the robot runs. We can specify it down to milliseconds if we want it. The reason that we drag it in here in position 4, that line 4, after the 2 set variables. That is, we want the variables that can change in the beginning. So when we come back to the flows, we can easily see, well, we have 2 set variables here. These are the data that can vary. For example, we can choose to have our project folder in another place, or we can choose to use amazon.de. Right now, we will get the current date time into a datetime variable. We'll click Save. To use it in a format for files, we'll need to convert it to text. So here you'll find a convert date time to text, drag it in just after. The date time to convert, that was the current date time that just got created up here. Click this X, double click the current date time. The format to use, that will be custom. And here I'll specify my format. I'll say 4 Ys, 2 big M's, 2 D's, 2 big H's, 2 M's, and 2 seconds. The reasoning behind this is that I want the year first, then I want the month, the days, the hours in a 24-hour format that will make it easier to sort, minutes and seconds. In case you just run this robot once a week, you can of course skip these hours, minutes and seconds. But since we are going to run this robot continuously, we will use all of it. We will store this formatted date time in a variable called formatted date time. Now click Save. Go down to the end into the Close Excel, double click to open it. Navigate in front of this R. Over here in the variable picker, you will choose the formatted date time. Go up here and click between the percentage signs and the result. I like to have an underscore. This is just cosmetics. That is just to make it look a little bit nicer. Now say Save. Try to run your robot once more. And again, it will do the same, so I'll just fast forward to the end. That's it. Let's go inspect our data. That's nice. We now have a sortable format that will not overwrite our files, and we can see the data is the same, but we will have a new name each time the robot runs. So far, so good. Let's do some data gymnastics, and let me open up the results again. What I want now is 2 things. I'll want to remove this -5. In case you still have the parentheses, the approach will be the same. I also want to isolate the authors. If we have 1 or more, that's fine. Here we have plenty, and here we just have 1. So let's create some very nice regular expression patterns to solve for this. I have this minus, but I will also solve it if you have the parentheses. So let me minimize this. Open up a browser, and yes, we have plenty. I'll just go to the first one. Open up a new thing. I'll call this one regex101.com and click enter. The first thing you'll do is to pick your flavor. We are using the .NET C#, and let me introduce regex. Regex is a series of characters that defines a search pattern. So when we have our data, it looks like this in my case, so that could be this. And if we have 1,000 separator, it could also look like this. In case your data looks like this, we will create the pattern so it will also work with your parentheses. So 2, 1, 3, 4, like this. What we will do is to create an expression that will extract these digits, and it will remove these minus or the parentheses. To extract a single digit, that will look like this, a backward slash and a D. That means that we're looking for a digit. So right now, we're just saying, look for a digit. We get a lot of matches. But what I want to do is that I want to say, I want to look for 1 or more digits. Then I can say a plus here. And now we are getting out the digits. We can see that it ignores this comma, but over here in the match information, the first match is 5. That was fine. Then it's 214. That's also fine. The next match is 2 and 134. That is because it separates these two. Since we want to keep this separator, I move to the start of the expression. I make a hard bracket. I move to the end of this D. I make another hard bracket. Now I can, inside these hard brackets, I can say I want to look after digits and commas. There you go. We now have our matches just as we want. It's that easy. So let's try to test it. So what I will do here is that I will copy this regular expression, and let me just close down this Excel sheet here so we will not confuse ourselves. We'll go back to the web scraping. What we will do here is to open up the extract data from web page, open up any one of these search results. We will get this live helper up again. You'll need to go into advanced settings. And let me just move here. What we want here is to isolate the amount of reviews over here, or amount of ratings. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we have the CSS selectors. It doesn't say it, but this is for the first one, second one, third one, and fourth. Over here in regex in number 4, simply just paste in your regex pattern. Click OK. Boom. We have now removed the parentheses or the minus. Let's also try to click Finish. Click Save. And we will run the robot to test that this works. Regex is kind of straightforward. It can be a little bit complicated at first sight, but please just do these exercises with me. You will learn so much. I don't expect you to learn regex entirely here, but if you can understand what we do here, you come a long way. Let me minimize this and let me minimize this. If I go over here and pick the last one here, there you go. We have now skipped this minus or parentheses. That's cool. We also want to do the same thing for the author here. So let me just grab the first occurrence here, and I will open up regex1 again. So in the test string, we will have our author. We will delete this expression. We want to create a new expression. Now we will say look after by and a space. We will create a positive look behind. That is a parentheses, a question mark, a smaller than, then an equal sign, and here we will have to say what regex should look behind. That will be by and a space. Close the parentheses, and now you can see this purple one here, the purple pipe, that says that regex will start here. Currently, we are not extracting anything. So what we will do here is that we'll say a dot, that is any character, that is, for example, the C. We will say plus, and yes, that will extract the rest of the line. I also want to say I want to stop at this pipe, and I don't want to include this space. Then we will create a positive look ahead. So a parentheses, question mark, and an equal sign. And yes, this one will become easy for you once you have completed a couple of exercises in it. So please do it with me. Then I want a space. I want an asterisk that says that I want to look after more than one space, because some of the occurrences we have more spaces. I'll show you a little later. Then we also say we want to, here we are going to say where we're going to stop. We're not going to stop at this space, this space, this space, this space, but we're going to stop when the space is followed by a pipe. And the pipe we also need to escape like this with a backward slash, and then we'll have the pipe. I'll close down the parentheses. So right now this is working, but we can see here that we have a space. So what we will do is up here at the dot, I'll have a parentheses around this dot and this plus sign like this. Then I will go in after the plus, I will have a question mark. This is a non-greedy quantifier. It tells the regex engine to find the shortest possible match as opposed to the longest possible match. This is the default behavior, that is the longest possible match. So we're changing it here. In other words, it tries to capture as few characters as possible while still satisfying the overall pattern. So this one works as well because we have this space here. So now we have our pattern. It should look like this. And let's just try with some of the other ones to see that this works. For example, if I take the next one here, so I copy this one to our browser once more, I'll move to a new line. You can see here we also extract this name. And here, let's just try it to this part of pocket reference O'Reilly. Let me copy this and show you that this also works. And here you can see that we actually have two spaces after the author, but it also gets this order. So far, so good. let us copy this and do the exact same thing as before. So we can close down our Excel sheet now. We go to Power Automate Desktop. Double click the extract data from web page. Now open up an Amazon search once more. Go to Advanced Settings and the author that was value 2. So paste in your regex pattern right here. Click OK. There you go. We have now isolated the author for each one of the extractions. Click Save. Run your robot again and clap yourself on your shoulder. You came a long way with this. Again, we're doing all the steps. What we want to see now is that we can isolate the actual author and not get this data in the by with. So let's move out again, and we will clean up in this browser mess a little bit later. This is just while we develop. So if I move this here or I expand it, we now have nice authors, and if we have more than one author, we also save it. That's it. Let me close this once more. I also want to grab the URL because you can see here that if I hover my mouse over the title, I can click it and open up the book. I want to grab this weird looking URL up here. I might want to use it later on. So let me go back again. We cannot do it directly, so we need to use a little bit of wizardry, and I can show you why we can't do it. If I open up the extract data from web page once more, I open up the results here. And here, if I try to right click, extract element value, we cannot extract the actual URL here. So what we will do instead, let me click cancel. Let me click cancel here. We need to find the selector for the URL ourselves. So what we know now is that we know that, and let me just refresh so we get rid of these green dots. What we know now is that the URL must be related to this title in some way. And what we will do here is that we'll create a notepad. So I'll go down here to start, click start typing in Notepad and click enter to open it. Now we will fill it with data. We do this to make it a little bit easier so we store our data in here. Again, go over to the extract data from web page, open it, find the Amazon results here. So we have this one open. Now click Advanced Settings. Here we have a base selector. This is an address for our search results. We can see that we're extracting a table, that is this table with all these data in, but this is the base CSS selector. That is the actual address to find the first element. Then these selectors will find each of the other elements that we're trying to find. Go up here in the base CSS selector and copy it out. Move to your notepad, say table base CSS selector, click enter, click Ctrl V to paste in the table base CSS selector. We also want to grab the CSS selector for the title because we know that it's somewhat related to this CSS selector. So move a little bit down, and here we will say selector for the title. Go in here, Ctrl A, Ctrl C, paste in the selector here. This is the selector for the title. And let me show you why this is the address for the table base selector. And this is the selector for the title. So I'll click cancel here, cancel here, cancel here. We will move to our search results. And let me just do this. Refresh it again so we don't have these green dots up. I'll open up my notepad. What we will do now is to inspect the code for this web page, and that is because the code that is rooted here, or the selectors are rooted in the code. This selector, that was the address of our table base, and this was for the title when we wanted to extract it, and this is found over here. If you press F12 on your keyboard, the developer tools will open. In case you don't see it here in the button, in case it looked like this, let me click these three dots over here to the right. Just click these three dots and drag it to the button. That will make it much easier. So what we're saying here is that we are starting in an HTML for the base. Then we have a body. And let me scroll up here. This HTML, that was this HTML here. Then it says, look for a body. Look, that's down here. Then we want to, and maybe we can just, so we can have both of it here. So we are in the body. Then it says, find the first div. And again, I don't expect you to understand all these selectors, but I expect you to give it a try with me. Then we find the first div. That is this one here. And let's click this little arrow to expand it. Then we want to find the second div. Again, it's 0 indexed, so we scroll a little bit down to find the first and second div. Here we have the first one, and we didn't want it that, we want the second div. So we scroll a little bit further. Here we have it, this div ID search. I'll open this one again. Now I need to find the first div. That one is here. I'll open it. Again, I need to find the first div. So that will be this one here. Again, I'll find the div here. And now I'll need to find a span. And yes, I know that this is a lot, but please try to do it. That will make your selector work a lot better. So this is the first span. Then we need to move inside this div here. Yeah. And here you can see that and now we have the base. So here we have the results. We have the first result. And if I go a little bit down, you can see that here we have the first one. If I go down here, we have the second. So we have identified the base in the code. That is why this is the table-based selector. That is here. So now what this title says, that says for one of the results, this is the first result. Look in a div. And then we will have 5 divs, and eventually we will find it in an H2A span. I will just go through it like we did before. So here we have a div, we have another div, we have another div, we have another div, we have another div. Let me go here. We have another div, and here we need to find the second div. That will be this one here. We'll go into the div. We'll go into another div. We'll find the first div, that is here. Then we will find the H2 here. And now we will have the A. That one was here. So if I open this, here we have the span. And if I open the span, that is why the title had this selector. And look what is smart here. If I move one back, so if I move this span from this selector, we will end here in A. And look what this href attribute says. Here we have our URL. So what we did here is that we backwards engineered the selector for the URL. If I go to my notepad once more, make sure you move to the end, have an enter click. Here we will have a selector for the URL and click enter. We will take this selector up here that we just wrote in, but only to the A. So copy everything to the A. It looks like this. So it looks quite similar to the title. We just need to do something. And here we're not looking for text, but the href attribute. So make sure you have this in your clipboard. You can close down the browser or minimize it at least. Go into the extract data from web page. Again, we'll need to open up a search result to open this. Go inside the advanced settings. Now we will add the URL. So click this plus. The CSS selector, well, we just created that one here. In the attribute, you type in href. Click OK. Boom, there you go. We have now got all the URLs. Wasn't that easy? At least when you understand what you're doing, and trust me, this selector work will do wonders for your Power Automate desktop game. Click finish. Click save. Try to run the robot again. Now I want to see that I'm able to save the URLs to the Excel book. We saw that we could extract them, but we also want to see that it happens when the robot runs. So yeah, I'll move in to my results. I'll double click it. There you go. We now have the URL. Yes, they are long, but they are that on Amazon. So we have now extracted the data, we have done data gymnastics, and we have manually created a selector for the URL. Right now we are manually doing a regex search. I also wanted to make sure that I could do all 4 topics in our incoming Excel sheet. That was the input to Amazon. Let me just open it to recap. Here I wanted to move to products to scrape, and then I want to, for each one of these products, I want to do an extraction and write the results out to my result Excel sheet. Let's go do that. So we close here and we move inside here. Scroll up. So we will need to read the Excel data. We will launch another Excel instance. Move it in front of the first one and not after it. This is important because those two can interfere with each other, so have it before. Right now we are not opening up a blank document. We are opening up the following document. We know that we are in our project path like this, and then we will say / input to Amazon.xlsx. We will not have our instance visible. Since we don't want to write data back to this topic, we can improve performance a bit by saying open as read-only. We'll click save. One other common pitfall is that, again, let me just open up this input to Amazon again, is that we have 2 sheets. We have the Anders Jensen org, which is just an info sheet with some nice links for you. For example, if you want to join my community, which is completely free, you can click this Discord. But we want to make sure that the robot reads from here. And right now, per default, the robot just reads from the last one open. So our robot will work if this is the last open. But if this was the last open, our robot will fail. We cannot get the topics out here. So let's solve for that as well. Find and set active Excel worksheet and drag it in here. Here the Excel instance, and now we might want to say here I created the Excel instance and call it Excel instance. Let's just stick with that name for 2 seconds. So here we'll say activate the worksheet with the name. That was products to scrape. I can click save. So let's also name this Excel instance maybe topics. So we stay in the syntax of this one here. We can of course rename both of them, but let me show you the nice thing to do. Move over here to variables, right click, rename, and then I can say Excel instance topics. And look what happened when I click enter, it changes both places. That is exceptionally useful if we have more than one use of the Excel instance in our flow. We had 2, but we could have 5. So now we are working in the Excel instance topics. We are setting the active Excel worksheet. Now we can read from it. So I'll say read from Excel worksheet. I'll drag it in here. The Excel instance that I want to read in, that will be the Excel instance topics. I double click here. What do I want to read? I want to read all available values from the worksheet. Go into advanced. We have column headers. So in the first line of range contains column names. Take this here. The variables produced that is called Excel data. Let's rename it to Excel data topics and we'll click save. We also need to close this Excel instance again. So I'll have a close Excel. We're just reading this data into a data table so that we can work with it. Excel instance topics. We will not save the document. We cannot, by the way, we open it as read only. Then we'll click save. So what we're doing now is that we just read it into a data table. Let's try to run the beginning of the robot to see what we do here. So what you will do to the left of the 11, press your mouse, that will create a breakpoint. Again, press with your mouse, then it will be red. Now when you run, the robot will stop at the launch Excel. So we're not continuing all of these 20 steps. And go back to your robot. If you click stop here, we have what we wanted. What I wanted here was to have the Excel data topics. If I double click over here, you can see that we have now read our topics into a data table. A data table is, again, just performing like an Excel sheet. We do it because it's much faster to work in than directly in the UI of an Excel sheet. So let's use each one of these values to do this regex search and to create a new sheet here in the add new worksheet with the proper name. Let's also move this breakpoint again, so click once more. Before this region web scraping, we'll find a for each. A for each loops a collection one time from start to finish. Drag this one in here. So the value to iterate, that will be the Excel topics. We want to grab the topics one by one. So Excel data topics here. Here we will store it into a current item. That will be each one of these topics. I like to call this one current topic. Again, we rename the variables so it will make so it's easy to see what they're actually doing. Click save. Now click this end here. So click with your mouse, it turns a little bit darker blue. Press Ctrl X, yes, you will have an arrow. Go all the way down to the region end and click that region end. It will be a little bit darker yellow. Press Ctrl V, you'll paste in the end here. So now what we want to do is for each topic, we want to do the web scraping and we want to do the write to Excel. One best practice is for each one of these systems works is to navigate to the front page after each iteration. That is to make sure that the robot starts at the same place so it can click these buttons. We don't know if we moved into the system. Right now at Amazon it doesn't make a difference, but let's just implement that so you'll remember it if you are on a web page where it matters. So here you'll find a go to web page. So for each one of these topics, I will go to the Amazon URL, click this little X, go up and find Amazon URL, and double click and click save. So open up the populate text field on web page. Here I will not do a regex search, so I'll delete that. What I will do is to move inside the current topic. So I'll click this X here. I'll say current topic. And then I want to say, I need to give it the header of the column. We only have one column in our Excel data topics, but it will look like this. So I'll have a hard bracket, a single quotation mark, and then I'll say product, single quotation mark, hard bracket. And this product, let me show you where it comes from. So if I say save here, that will be this current topic is each one of these data rows in the Excel data topics. And if I open up this Excel data topics, the header was called product. That's why we are saying go look in the product. If we are lazy, let me open this one again. Mark all this, Control C to copy it, because we are using it down here when we want to add a new worksheet. So paste it in here as well. So now we made a dynamic solution that will loop through each topic. That is 4 in this case, but it will work if we have 100 topics. Let's go run the robot. I will fast forward to the end so we can see if it works. There it is. One thing we could do to speed it up a little, that is this run delay. If we set this to run, then there will be no delay between this. This is 100 milliseconds, that is 0.1 second. This is for us to see when we develop here, so that's why it's useful, but let's just set it to 1. What I want to do here is that I want to go back. Let's inspect the results. Now we have one Excel sheet for each one of these results. Go look. That was quite nice. So what I want to do now is, let me close this one down again. What I want to do here is that for each one of the results, let me just search for regex. Then I want to make sure, and I just need to be in books, sorry. Oh, I'll do a regex book search. Then I want to make sure that I grab each page here up to, right now here you can see that we have 180 books. So let's go create that. Let's go to Power Automate Desktop. Navigate out to your main console. We'll create a new flow, and this is where we can test and play a little bit around. So I'll call this Playground Web scraping. And that is, we start on a fresh just to see that we can navigate through each page. When this works, we want to implement it into our main flow. So again, let's just clean a little bit up here in all these browsers so we can easily see what's going on. I'll keep one Amazon open, and let me just make sure that I don't have it open here. So make sure you only have one open. Now you will do a regex search if you not already did it on books. That's important. So this is the page that we want to work at. I want to be able to make sure that we click next, 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 next until we have no next here. Here you can see that we are navigating through each one of these pages. Move back to page 1 again. So what we will do here is that go into our playground flow, find, and let me maximize it, find a launch new Microsoft Edge and drag it in. In the launch mode, here I'll just attach it to our running instance. So I'll pick this one here. That lets me, if I click this drop down, you can see that I can now attach it to the Amazon regex. It's a little bit easier than just opening it up over and over. So then we can click save. Now I want to click the next element. So if I go up here, I'll click the link on web page and drag it in. Click the drop down here that will let us create a new UI element. Scroll down. Oh, that was too much. Find the next button, that will be an anchor here. Press Ctrl on your keyboard and click the next button. We have clicked it here. We click save. Also set the run delay here to 1. That will make it a little bit faster. So now let us just try to run it to see that we can actually click one next button. That worked. Again, let's move back to page 1 like this. Let's test if it works on multiple next buttons. We'll go back here. Before the click link on web page, we will have a loop here. We will drag the loop in here. Here I will start from 1. I want to end at 40. This is arbitrary. At the moment we're just testing and developing. Of course I want to only click the next button whenever it's available. We will have increments of 1. So this loop will go over and over until it reaches 40. So it will run 40 times. Here I will click save. Now drag in this click link on web page into the loop. Now when you run it, again, make sure you are on the page 1 because we defined it up here. So try to click run, and now it should jump to all the 40 pages if it works, but apparently here we have a little bit of a problem. We're jumping towards page 2 and 3 over and over. We cannot use this one here. We need to fix it a bit. Again, move to page 1. So in case you want to make sure, just move to page 1. We need to create a next button selector manually. We could not use this one here. So what I will do here is that I will right click. I can say inspect. I could also press F12 to get the developer tools just right before. This one just let us jump directly to the next element. This is the address of the next element. What I want to use here is that I want to use the A element. That was this anchor. Then I want to use this class because I think that is fairly static. It says S pagination item, S pagination next. You can see it says something about the next button. So go in here, make sure you click a couple of times with the mouse so it marks everything. Control C to copy it out. Then we go to our notepad. Jump 2 lines below here. Here you will say next button selector, and we will click enter. When we click Control V here, we will paste in this class attribute with this value. I also want to add the A element. So I'll say A here, then a hard bracket, and a hard bracket here in the end. That says go into the A element and look for this class. So go copy this selector, move down to your playground web scraping, go to UI elements. Here we can see this anchor. Double click to open it. So we will not use this. This one didn't really work. I'll click the text editor. Now we can manipulate our selector manually. So go mark it and press Ctrl V. We'll click Save. Let's also rename this. So I right click, and here we will say button. Next, like this. This is just best practice, so we can easily see what's going on. Again, let's try to run our robot. Close the developer tools. Make sure you are on page 1. We are. Let's try to run the robot and see if this works. So now we are page 2. We're on page 3. We're on page 4. We're on page 5. We created a selector that works. Of course, it's quite random because we only have 179 results here. And we defined it to go through 40 pages. So suddenly it will cause an error here because now it cannot find a next button. And let me show you why. That is because this one is grayed out. We cannot click this next element. So that is fine. That was expected that we failed, but we saw that we can loop through each one of these pages. So now what I want to do here is that we have a working selector. We can continue to click on the next until we have an error, and then we should stop. Go over to actions and then find a loop condition. Oh, I put it in the wrong place. I can just click cancel. Put it in here in the end. So the loop conditions, the first operand here, we will just say in percentage signs, we will say true equals true. This means that this loop will run over and over until we stop it. I click save here. Move the click link on web page down here in the loop condition. Click this one here, press Ctrl and click this one, click delete. So what we will do here is that we will click this over and over, and this will of course cause an error. When this causes an error, we want to move out here. So let's create a label. So here I'll have a label. I'll drag it in here in the end. This label will say no more next buttons, and we'll click save. Now I just need to tell this, if this causes an error, that means that we're out of pages, then the robot should move down here to label. So double click the click link on web page. Go into on error. Here I want to say, if an error occurs, I want to, let me just make it a little bit bigger. I want to continue the flow. What do I want to do? I want to go to the label that I just created. It looks like this. So now we are going to this no more next buttons. Our robot will not fail when it have reached the last page. When we implement this in our final robot, we will just have our web scraping in here. So we are web scraping, clicking the next, and so forth. But let's make sure that we are on page 1. We are not, so we go to page 1 again. Try to run the robot. Now we should see that we are clicking all the way up to, I can't remember how many pages we had, around 10, I believe. Now I can see 6, 7, 8, 9. We had a little bit more, apparently. 11 maybe? Actually, we have 12. And now we're looking for this next button. Now our robot will try to look, but we made error handling, so in a couple of seconds, it realizes it couldn't find it, and then it closes successfully. Bingo! So click this loop condition, click Shift on your keyboard, click the label, press Ctrl-C to copy it. Then we'll move back to our web scraping flow. In here, you'll click the end region, and then you'll press Ctrl-V. That will paste in our loop condition. Now we will move the extract data from web page inside this loop. So what will happen here is that we will run this loop over and over. That means for each one of these topics, when we have done the search, we will extract the data, we will click the next button, then it will continue. It will extract the data, click the next button. And when we have no more next buttons, it will move down here and eventually it will write to Excel. So now we have multiple pages on here. If we started our flow now, this Amazon results will be overridden over and over with this loop. So our data from each one of the pages will get overridden. We need to create a base data table where we can add the data to over and over once we are extracting it. So let's initialize a base data table. I go up here, find another set variable here, and drag it in after the two first set variables. I'll call this one here base Amazon results. And down here, we will have another data row. Since we already created it and we're lazy, let's click save here. This will give us an error because we misses some data in it. That's fine. So what you want to do is to scroll down inside this write to Excel worksheet. Let's go copy this one here. That is the value to write this data row. It looks a lot what we're going to need. Move inside this base Amazon result, paste it in. Since this will be the header of our data table, I move out here between the curly brackets and the actual hard brackets, and I make a hat like this. This indicates that this is a header row. That's it. Now we initialized a data table where we can add data to over and over. I can click save here. We'll have no error. Then what we want to do in the extract data from web page, we want a loop that for each one of these rows here, it will add it to this base Amazon results. There's no direct way to do it. That's why we use a loop. We cannot merge two data tables in Power Automate Desktop. Of course we can, but we need to use this workaround. No worries. This is a common scenario, so please do this part with me as well. Drag in the loop inside this loop condition, but after the extract data from web page. So what do I want to do? Well, these are a loop for all the rows that is in the Amazon results. So I'll start at 0 because it's 0 index. Then I'll count the rows here. So I'll say X here. I'll scroll up, Amazon results. And let me scroll up again. We will have the rows count like this. Since the rows counts are not 0 indexed, I'll just -1. That is because we started at 0. I'll increment by 1, and we can see here that the variables produced is called loop index. That is saying in the first loop index, that is loop index 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So I'll say save. So what do I want to do here? Well, for each one of these rows in the Amazon results, I will add it to the base Amazon results. So find a set variable here and drag it in here. So the base Amazon results, click this X, double click the base Amazon results. So I will say whatever is in the base Amazon results, double click here. Then I'll add rows to it from these Amazon results. It looks like this. I'll say plus, and then I'll say Amazon results like this. Delete these two percentage signs and have a hard bracket, have loop index, and have a hard bracket end. So this one, the loop index will be 0 at first. That's perfect because that's the first row. So it will add the first row. Then it'll be 1. That will add the second row to this data table over and over. I can click save. One thing that we don't want is that this one here, we saw it, this loop condition, that will click the next button. This will take a lot of time if you want to extract all pages on Amazon. So let's restrict it. Let's just take the first 3 pages. To restrict it, we will add a counter variable which we can use. So again, up here in the actions, find a set variable and drag it in just before the loop condition. I will call this one here loop count, and it will start by 1. And that is because we start at 1 and add 1 to it. So we just create this counter to keep track of where we are in the loop condition. So it will start at 1, and then we will add 1 to it each time this loop condition has run. So I'll add in another set variable here. Again, you don't need to do this if you prefer to just extract all of the pages. I just want to restrict the pages to 3 to make it a little bit quicker, and that is my only assumption. So here I'll say loop count, and again I will say add 1 to this loop count. So I'll click this X, say loop count plus 1. Now we add 1 to it. Now I just need to say If this loop count is less than or equal to 3, then I don't want this loop condition to run. So double click it. Up here, you will say the first operand. That will now be loop count. We will say in the operator, we will say less than or equal to 3. I will click save. And now we can close down all this if we have any Amazon instances running. And I can also close this regex just to clean a little bit up. Hey, do you enjoy this video? Then you can help me and my channel a lot by giving it a thumbs up. Thank you. The only thing that we need to consider here is that when we run the robot now, we have done everything right except for one thing. And that is this base Amazon results we created up here. And that means that when our robot runs for each one of these topics, we will append the results to this base Amazon results, and we will write it out to Excel for each one of these topics. That means it will work for the first iteration, but for the second one, we will have double the data, and then we will have 3 times the data, 4 times the data, because we will append the data over and over. So we need to reset this base Amazon results. We can do it by moving it down here into for each. So go up here in the set variable, press Ctrl X, move in here, and then mark the go to web page and Ctrl V. We will paste it in here. This is a nice exercise of thinking where to put it. And I chose to do it very directly. So you will actually think about why we will have it here and not up here. You can try to run the robot where you have one here and then afterward up here or in the other direction and see what the error is or what it will be. Now we can just click run here. The key takeaway from this exercise, that is, learn to work with CSS selectors. In case you missed some of it in this video, simply just rewind it and make sure you understood everything. The second one, that is data tables. We have manipulated quite a lot of data today. Learn to be able to refer to data tables by the indexes and the row counts and all what we did here. The third thing, that is regular expressions. I don't expect you to understand the code, but please just understand what it can do. You can easily Google or ChatGPT all the codes. Just you can write a prompt and then ChatGPT will help you. So now we are scraping the 3 first pages of each result, and we want to see that we can write it to Excel. So let's just see what we have the regex search. That will be the last one. It's very exciting to see this project work. And we are done in one search. And let's see. Now I just need to finish. So here we are writing. That's it. Let's go to our results. Let us open it. There you go. If I go to Visual Basic, we have exactly 3 pages. That is 48 results. We also have it here in JavaScript and we have it in regex. Great job. To complete your Power Automate desktop journey, you should watch this video next.